Okay, let me see. I think my lip is looking good. Good afternoon. How are you? I'm going to be drinking my smoothie. Let me tell you what I'm drinking today because I know you guys sometimes you ask me, what is it you're drinking? In my smoothie today, I have ginger because ginger helps with circulation. So it's important to have your ginger in your smoothie. There is water, there is an apple, there is a banana, and there are five strawberries and about five dried cherries. So that's what I'm drinking. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. So we're going to be talking this afternoon because there's some things I want to ask you guys. The first question is, do you think that, hi Andrea, hi Sharita, do you think that in Spanish should be spoken in Guyana? Hi Greg. That's the first question. Should Spanish be spoken? Hi Vernita, good afternoon, my dear. How are you? Thelma, thank you for coming. Hi Kumar. Hi Denise, how are you? Emmanuel, good afternoon, good afternoon. Hi Sharita, good afternoon. Shelly, how are you, my dear? Thank you for being in the house, Earl. Yes. Yeah, Marlene, how are you? Are you good? Susan, how is life? Susan. All right, so how are you? Oh, I am doing well, well on. So I'm going to be dealing with just some things, some thoughts. But the first question is, hi Shelly, I know I've missed someone. I rock it in the house. The first thing I want to ask you, should Spanish it's the education for the future? So it's great. Okay, let's see. Greg says yes. It's important to learn another language. Hi Shanisa, how are you? Michael, Dolly. Not yet, Dolly, not yet. Soon, 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 soon. Janelle is here. Priya is here. And I said hi to Earl. Barbishan! Yes, Shanisa! Yes! Crystal, how are you, my dear? Marcia, I'm good. What about you? Excellent. I'm glad to hear you're doing well, Denise. Suzanne, how are you? Yes, Spanish was taken in school when I was going to school. Marlene said it was taken in school. Dolly, Angle. All right, so the first question is, yeah, me dress up. I put me dan. Chandra, how are you? How you do? Diana, thank you for coming. Yes. Fornita says yes, Spanish should be spoken in Guyana. I agree. I think so. GT in the house! Yes! Yes, oh my gosh. Patricia, you good? Boravishan, yes. Totally agree. Shelly says she totally agrees with that Spanish should be spoken. Kisonday, what about you? Like you're going out, like the outfit. Thank you. I'm not going out for Anita. I was on a Zoom. So you know when you're on the Zoom, you just thanks Shaniza. Thank you, Diana. I don't make my head start swell now, man. Stop. I stop. Oh, Crystal, you're joining us from GT and the coconut aisle. You must think me just left me coconut aisle when me now go. What you think me got here? What you think this is? It's always near. Never fear. My coconut oil is always near. Girl, me not gonna know it, girl. Molly, me not gonna know it. Are you Iris? Me contact to Chandra. Oh, girl, thanks. Should Spanish be spoken in Guyana? It's already spoken. Should it be a bilingual country or even trilingual? Oh my gosh, yes. I like your response. Official language is a whole nother story. Yes. You look pretty. I think, Angela, what my question should have been then is that Cheryl, New York, good morning, New York. Oh my God, just told my brother that today. God is good. Yes. What I'm thinking is that Nice Dress Radhika says, are you one of the witnesses? I heard you was on Zoom. I was on Zoom. No, I'm not a Jehovah's Witness. You put on your pretty nanda. Looking pretty. I pay thanks. Lucky Legs, thank you. Girl, you dial up. Yes, me dial up. Me dial up. I think the question should be, should we Guyanese, who perhaps are not Spanish speakers, be speaking Spanish? Because I have noticed my grandmother saw a dress like that for me. Okay, she saw a dress like this for you. Because we have, that's the thing, we have so many people in our country who are speaking Spanish, and I feel as if we have so many native, that's us, who were born there, bred there, and we're not speaking the language. I think that is to our disadvantage. Oh girl, thank you, Nadia. I think it's to our disadvantage not to speak the language. And I'm not saying that because I must admit that I'm a Spanish speaker and a French speaker, all right? Those are the languages that I teach. But I'm not saying that because I teach these languages. I just think that if we are in a country and we're going to navigate all aspects of our society, it is important that we speak the language that other people who are in our country, they are speaking. Hi Davy, how you do? Yes. So what we do is we equip our people with the language so that there will not be people speaking in spaces in our country. More emphasis should be placed on Spanish, yes. Speaking in spaces that we cannot be in. And then what I've noticed also, I could speak it a little bit, but I know a lot of words. Excellent. That is beautiful. Yes. That is awesome. Dolly said she can speak it a little bit. Yes. And it is just important that we speak it. One of the things that I know for sure is that it's not a difficult language. I can tell you that. I self-taught, yes, we should because of the influx of other nationalities in Guyana. I agree with you, Denise. I truly agree with you. Cheryl agrees also. She feels that. Cheryl, you can speak it too. Yes. We must, as the citizens of the country, and I mean there are other people who are citizens, I'm not negating that fact by saying this. It's not, when I say one thing, then I'm not saying the other thing. But I truly feel that we should really be speaking the language. Yes. All right, so that's the first thing I wanted to talk about, because I was thinking about it and I wanted to see how you guys, what were your thoughts on it too. Oh, Angela, I'm glad you come. Yes, this is a space where this is a Guyanese space. They teach it in school. They teach us in school. I learned it in school for one term. When I was in Form 1, I had a teacher. She was the most amazing teacher. She left such an impression on my mind. Hi, Faith. So nice to see you. Radhika, thanks for coming. She left such an indelible mark on my mind, Savita, yes, that I said, you know what? I am going to pursue this. That's how the mark was on me. And I just had her for one term in Form 1 at West Dem Secondary School. And I was like, wow. I've never seen such an amazing person. So I see that we're all agreeing that, Spanish should be spoken. All right? How many people here on this live speak the language? How many of you speak the language? Yes. So we have to create that space so that can be done. And not just, hola, ¿cómo estás? Estoy bien. No, I'm talking about really being able to engage in conversations. Okay, first, how is all your kids? How are they all blessed and happy? Yes, my kids are awesome. Thank you. Once you walk in that class, English, now English, only Spanish. That is so true. Oh my gosh. Thanks, Anne. Yes, Angela put her thing again. She said, cultural diffusion is region 1, has many that region speaking Spanish, Latin America, Portuguese, and Nigeria, Dutch too. Exactly, of accommodating the different cultures. You see that? It's being taught in the primary school from grade 1. Sentence, we are brother by Brazil, we are border by Brazil. Of course, yes, I know, yes, we are taking our geographical borders into consideration, but I want us to also, oh, you speak it but not fluently. But I want us to think not just the geographical, a little Angela said, not just the geographical location, but the reality of what's happening in Guyana now. I think it's important that we speak it because of that reality, not just because of the fact that we are bordered by these countries. All right? Yes. All right. The second thing is, what about our stories that do not have melody? Yes, we're going to talk a little bit about the stories we have. Daram said, good afternoon, good night over here. A small Guyanese community living in the Netherlands. What about Dutch in Berbice? Yes, I believe so too. Dutch in Berbice. Exactly. Yes. Richie, thanks. Spanish was my favorite subject. Now I can't do it. Why not? Let's see what you're saying. Lelauti said, no, I can't because it's so long ago and I didn't have any practice, but that was 43 years ago. I'm going to tell you my story, Lelauti. One of the things I will say is that you can learn any language at any age. I'm saying that because this is my story. When I was already teaching English as a secondary school teacher, there was this restlessness in me. I wanted something else. I wanted something more. That's the way I am. As a person who is creative, I am always looking for what else am I going to do? What's the next step? What am I going to do next? And my mother always had this dream for me to speak Spanish. She was always saying to me, one of the things that I wanted to do in my life was to be a Spanish teacher. And she kept saying it to me so many times that I felt as if part of the work that I have to do, I'm still anxious to do it again, go for it. Part of the work that I had to do was to actually speak the language too. To Rosalind Glasgow. Where is she from, Malini? I'm related to all the Glasgows from Berbice, the Glasgows from West Bank Demerara, the Glasgows from Maikoni, Mahaika area. I know that I'm related to all of those. And guess what? I self-taught. I taught myself the language. From Berbice, definitely, yes. And after I taught myself, I went on, man, how I get into an argument with my Guyanese things, say American to cause years, but his parents, wait, let me see where let me go back. His parents are Guyanese, okay. Yes, I'm from West Bank, Wales, okay, from Wales. And I taught myself, and then I went and furthered my education. So whatever dream you have, whatever you always wanted to do, yes, thank you, Mark. Do not say, I'm too old, I'm too young, I'm too thin, I'm too fat, I'm too whatever. Whatever dream you have, this is the time. Once you're alive and you're breathing, this is the time to go after your dream. Whatever it is, do not allow yourself to fall into the label of, what someone else think your reality should be. You do not have to ask permission. Here you look just like Teacher Loretta My Days in Rosal. Okay, thank you. You do not have to ask permission to go and learn a language if that's what you want to do now from good intent. Yes, 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 yes. Yes. You don't have to ask permission. Thank you. Just start learning. Whatever it is that you have in you that you think that, wow, I feel like doing this, I feel like being this, I feel like being that. Please step out. Thank you, Shondell, and get it done. You do not have to ask permission to live your best life. You do not have to ask permission to go after your dreams. Just get up and go after your dreams. All right. So the next thing is, what happens to the stories that are not so melodious? I know I call this channel Our Story Got Melody. What about the stories that are not so melodious? I'm going to tell you one such story. Good afternoon. Thank you so much. I remember sleeping in the room in the rice bag. I was on the floor in the bedroom in the rice bag. And the rats would come into the bags and they would bite our feet. And in the morning when we wake up, we would, thank you, we would actually be putting our hands under our feet and we will feel the jaggedness of the rat bites on our foot bottom. But more than that, I remember that in the adjoining room, there were boys. I was about 8 years old. In the adjoining room, there were teenage boys. And they were calling me in the night. They were saying, Dion, Dion, come over, come over. I don't know what, but at 8 years old, I had the presence of mind. Thank you, Judy. I had the presence of mind to know that going into that room was not a good idea. That was not my first encounter with sexual abuse. I am not going to relay the stories of sexual abuse, but that was one of my encounters. And I was thinking to myself today, I said, what about these stories? What about the stories of abuse that so many of us... Okay, thank you, Angela. Enjoy the rest of your work. That so many of us have endured, but we do not talk about these stories because there is no melody in the story. Some of us, we have not even reached a place where we can confront the person who has abused us. We have not reached a place where we can actually even embody that story as our story without owning the shame that surrounds the story and the embarrassment. Thank you, Shelley. I'm not going to say it. And I thought about it and I said, you know what? Even me, myself, I was not always the untold stories indeed, Judy. I was not always at a place. Yes, there is no melody in the stories, but are these stories worth telling? If we keep our mouths quiet, if we do not talk about the fact that we were molested, then how are we going to stop others? Exactly. I was embarrassed to discuss it. I was feeling the shame of the story because somehow I felt as if this happened to me because of something in me that was not right, that was not functioning well. It took me years to confront the people who abused me. It took me years to develop the courage. Yes, it took me years to develop the courage to actually say, I can get over this. I can go to the person. And when I went to one such person, the person said, no, that never happened. The best thing that you can do for someone is to actually acknowledge if you've done them wrong. What we have to understand with sexual abuse and those of us who have been victim of sexual abuse, and let me tell you, not because these stories do not have melody, it means that not a lot of us experience them. You will be surprised how many of us as young girls, And young boys in Guyana, good afternoon, Shondell, as young girls and Constance, and young boys in Guyana actually experience sexual abuse. I mean, there was a time in my life where I felt this thing was just following me around. You ever felt as if something was just following you around? I had to break it. I really had to break it. I mean, I would be in one place and it would be one person. I would be in a different place. And I actually said to myself, what is this? What is this? Well, what is worse is when we do not have the power to tell the story. It is not easy to tell this story. There is no melody in this story. This is not the story of even killing a mosquito. This is not those stories. This is the story that do not have melody, but is worth telling, because these are also our stories. One of the things that we have to do, not just as Guyanese, but as humans, I feel, is embrace all the stories. Let me tell you what happened. For years, I did not tell these stories. I did not accept them, to the point where beautiful chunks of my childhood memories were lost. I couldn't recall parts of my childhood. What I had done was I had repressed and suppressed the experience to the point where that experience took with it every other positive experience that I've had. I truly understand, Cheryl. And I could not recall. My siblings will be saying to me, can you remember this? Can you remember that? Not me. I did not remember anything, because I had chunked the negative story with the positive and I had repressed all of them. And then exactly. And then I decided that I am not going to live any part of my life in shame and embarrassment. These are my stories. All of this is totally me. The best gift I gave myself was to accept all my stories, whether they had melody or not. That was the best gift I gave myself. To come, and you know what it did for me? It made me more vulnerable. The fact that I can sit here and talk to you and tell you this story that years before I could not open my mouth and say, this is my story. My story has become my song. How did my story become my song? My story became my song because, you see, the thing with stories is that they are very forgiving. Stories are forgiving. You can recreate the story. You can change the ending of the story. I am not saying that you are going to start adding imagination to the factual parts of the story. What I'm saying is, what you do is you change your outlook. You change your perspective. You change the way you interpret the story, and you change the way you tell the story. So now when I tell the story of abuse, I don't tell the story as a victim. I tell the story as a human being who had an experience that has made me more compassionate. I shan't tell. And that's what all of our stories should do. Whether they are stories of abuse, whether those are stories of divorce, whether they are stories of betrayal, whatever the stories are, one of the best gifts you can give yourself, exactly, all of us, so many of us had these stories, is to accept the story and dig deeper. I am drinking. Oh my gosh. Radhika, I am drinking. I'm not to lose weight, but my diet itself is I eat a lot of salads and I drink a lot of smoothies. Yes. You know, Pauline, what Pauline is saying is so true. And this has actually been the way. Back in those days, sexual abuse was a cover up in Guyana. We were told that we will bring shame on the family. As a result, many of us live in silence, shame, and hurt just to protect the abuser. That is so, so true. This is what I learned. Will always be Guyanese. Yes, exactly. And most of us, it's never strangers. It's always people that we know. Okay, so it's not somebody who's coming from the outside to do it to us. But we have to be willing to speak up, because if we do not speak up, then we cannot help someone else. We will think that I'm the only person that this has ever happened to. Have you ever felt that way? Have you ever felt that I am the only one that this has happened to? I used to think that way until I opened my mouth. Good afternoon, Farisa. Until I opened my mouth, I chair Crystal, and I start speaking. Then I realized that it's not just my story, it's our story. And then there's the story of what I witnessed my mother going through, the abuse. You know, for years, I blamed my mother. Hello, Aliandra, how are you? I blamed Aishanaz. I blamed my mother for not being there and not being present. And then I sat with my mother and I had a conversation with her, human to human, getting a chance to see her humanity. And for the first time in my life, when I sat with my mother, I realized that my mother had the same story and the same struggles. She had the stories of abuse just like me. She had the stories of abuse from my father. And then for a moment, I caught a glimpse. Yes, Cheryl. I caught a glimpse of my mother's humanity. I caught a glimpse of my mother's frailty. I got a chance to see my mother as a human, and that changed everything. If you can see the humanity and the frailty in the other human being, then I realized that my mother was just a girl trying to find her way in the world, trying to find someone who will stand with her. And she was just attracting. She was just attracting these men who would not stand there with her. And when I saw my mother's reality, when I saw my mother's compassion, I developed compassion for my own mother. I shifted the blame. I stopped blaming my mother for what never happened, for, the fact all that I had to go through, for her not being there. I stopped blaming her. And I start saying, my mother, and I feel like crying saying this, but my mother did the best she could under the circumstances that was available to her. She did the best she could. And when I really shifted my paradigm, when I shifted my belief, when I shifted the way I think, and I started saying, my mother did the best she could, it changed me. It really changed me. She did the best she could. Yes, mom work, have people to look after us. She trusts exactly. She did the best she could. And she was hoping that by doing her best, that she would have been doing a great thing. And I do not blame her. She did the best she could. I used to blame my mother because there was a time in our lives when we would eat on Monday and then there is no food until Thursday again. So what we did, we would pick water callaloo we used to go to the trenches, pick the water callaloo, catch cockabelly, go by the seawall when the herring come over, you know, when the big wave come over the water and the herrings come over. We would do that. We would go and we'd collect the herring. We would go with we hook and we would fish. You know, we had to like really work for food. We had to work for food. And sometimes we would go in the market on Saturdays when all the people finish selling. We'll have our bag and our knives, and we will go when they throw away the stuff, the riffraff, after they've sold everything, and we will start pick. That means we will go through with our knives. We might find an Edo. It might have a big piece rotten, but the bottom is still good. We will cut off the rotten part and we will put the good part in our bag. And we did that. And then we would bring that home and we would cook that. We would pick water callaloo. I mean, fish, we always have to go fishing. We made our own. We made little seines and we would be feeling one body chasing thing and knocking the water from one side and the other person holding the little seine and let the fish they come in the seine and then we will take them home. I know for some people they might say this story is not melodious, but all of our stories are not melodious. What are we going to do with the stories that are not melodious? We cannot just say they're not a part of who we are. For each time we deny a part of who we are, we cannot be authentic. So the best we can do is embrace all the stories. Let me share an embarrassing story with you. Still catch fish and eat from the land. Exactly. I remember when I went to Teachers College. Remember, I'm speaking Creolese. Okay, I do not know standard English. They sent me up to do a poem. And the poem said, only infinite. Now me, I speak Creolese. We aspirate where there is no age. That means if the word doesn't have an age, like for instance, egg, we won't say egg, we say heg. So I went up, thank you darling Charmin. I went up on the stage and I stood there, hear me, only infinite. Oh my gosh, if you see the look on the people's faces, they were in shock that there was this young girl who is going to be a teacher and she cannot speak well. She doesn't know when to pronounce her H or when not to pronounce her H's. And let me tell you, for years, that thing stuck in my memory. The faces of the people, they never left me for years. I would be there and I would be looking, and sometimes I would remember it, and just by myself, I would just relive the moment, and the embarrassment would touch me, and I would feel so bad. I would feel bad for years. I saw myself again standing on that stage, pronouncing an H, aspirating an H where there was no H, and everybody looking at me. And I lived with that shame and embarrassment for years that I couldn't speak properly. And then I decided that I'm not living my life in shame. This is my story. This is my story. Why would I not embrace my story? This is who I am. That's how I was brought up. I didn't know that I was not supposed to aspirate. And I did. Oh, thank you, Faith. Yes, I did. And when I accept the stories, that it's okay. It's okay to make mistakes. What we don't do is we don't wallow in the mistake. Okay? We don't wallow in the mistake. Susan, I'm so happy you enjoy that. And we have to move on. Or let me give you another story. This is my story. This is my song. Exactly. You know, we all did things in our lives that are not worthy of repeating. You know what you did. I know what I did. There was a time when some of the things that I did, there are still people out there who need to be uplifted. That is so true, Charmin. They would be in my mind and I couldn't shake them. I could not shake my mistakes. Have you ever been in that place? This is also our story. I am talking today about the stories that do not have melody. There is no melody in these stories, but they are our stories. And I would try to live my best life. I mean, going to church, doing everything. But my mind was under siege by my mistakes, by my past, by what I had done. And this thing caused a crippling feeling on my being. I couldn't walk and live my life with the way I wanted to. There was no pep in my step. There was no raising of my shoulder. There was no carrying my physiology in a way that would make me feel proud. It's true, Lana. Hi, Nita. And then I decided. I said, you know what? I am going to forgive myself. Yes. And every morning, I would go into the bathroom. And just before I took my shower, I would say, Dion, I forgive you for X, Y, and Z. Dion, I'm proud of you for X, Y, Z. Dion, I commit to you. And I would say that. And I said that, and I would keep, the first time I did it, oh my gosh, I started crying. I started crying. These hot tears. I was taking a hot bath, and these hot tears just started coming down my face. And this load was lifted from me. It wasn't a load only of the pain, of my own pain that I was carrying, but of the pain that others had caused me, of the injury that others had caused me. But the moment, thank you so much, Charmin. The moment I decided that I am going to forgive me. Thank you, Charmin. You are so lovely. That's the moment when I became aware of my own humanity. And guess what happened? I stopped being judgmental. The day I forgave myself, I stopped being judgmental. Because this is what happened. Thank you, Susan. This is what happened. The judgment that I was projecting, thank you, Marva. The judgment that I was projecting outwardly was my own non-acceptance. Don't kill. Was my own non-acceptance of my own frailty. Because I was not willing to accept me and all my frailty. In that moment, when I decided that, you know what? I forgive you. Because you have a platform to help others. There are so many people who will benefit. Let me see what Lana says from this. Yes. Thank you, Dennis. Thank you, Joy, for the stars. I'm telling you, when I did that, I started seeing the humanity in people. I am telling you, there is something about forgiveness. Oh, thank you, guys. And thank you, Charmin, for starting this. Thank you for all the love, all the hearts. There is something about forgiveness that does something for you. You start to see the human in people. You become more authentic. You're not afraid of your stories anymore. You accept all parts of you. You stop thinking that you have to be someone else or something else. Thank you so much. In order to survive, you realize that you can just be yourself. I can just be myself. And this is what I realized. I realized that my story is not really my story. And that's what I want you to understand. That your story is not really your story. Susan, exactly. And you see, it's exactly what Susan is saying there. When we open our mouths and we share our not so melodious stories, then we realize that, wow, thank you, Denise, for the stars. This is not just my story. This is the story of so many other human beings. And we realize that we are not alone. And we realize that we are having a human experience. That's it. All the things that have happened to us are just human experiences that we are having. And sometimes our own stories are testimony to others. I would say all the time, because they're not just our story. Every story that I share, it is somebody else's story. If I keep the story, exactly, forgiveness is a powerful tool, but unforgiveness will keep us bound and trapped. That is so true, Faith. If I keep the story and I don't share the story, how would others know that they're not alone? Because for me, I thought that I was alone. Let me tell you this story. I remember there was one time I had no underwear. I'm telling you, yes, no underwear. And people used to give me their old pantyhose. And I would cut off the feet and wear the top as panties. I used to feel nice when somebody would call me and give me all their strawn out stockings. You know, after the stockings strawn out. And then they would, used to use the Q-Tex. They would use the Q-Tex and try to stop the straw. After all that have happened and the stocking is no longer viable, it cannot be used anymore, they would give me the stocking. Yes, that is so true. And I would wear the stocking. You see that? Chanel said, I'm telling her story. And I would wear the stocking. And that was my panty for years. That's my story. That's not a melodious story, but that is my story. And guess what? I was saying to myself, I don't believe there's anyone else in life who had this experience. There could not be anyone else who had this kind of experience. On the other hand, I was telling myself, why me? Holly, why me? Why me? Why me? Holly, you and I go back so far. And then I realized that I was just having a human experience. You see, Holly, you almost make me, brought me to tears. It was a human experience. This is a human experience that was handing me as a gift what compassion looks like. And this was teaching me that perhaps one day I might be in a place where I have to show compassion. Oh gosh. You see, when you cry, it's because the story has become more overwhelming than the storyteller. And that's what's happening here. The story has become bigger than me. Yes. Life was giving me a chance to be compassionate. It was saying to me, take this, because one day you're going to be in a position where you might be able to help someone who might need the same compassion that you're offering. And that's what I learned. But more than that, from that story, I learned also that we must never stop believing. Never believe that a thing doesn't have any more use. Never believe, that you cannot keep going, that it's the end of your journey. For the stocking, it wasn't the end of the stocking journey after someone had worn it. No, I took it, I washed it, and I wore it, and it got new life. I remember also when I was older, I had to work for money to buy underwear. I would go. There was a special lady I used to go and scrub her steps. I would go. I remember always I would go Saturdays most time. Scrub the front step. Scrub the back step. And when I finished, she would pay me. But I always remember when I go and I start, you always have to start with the landing. And I would scrub with that scraper. I have to scrub those boards until everything is shine. Until everything is shine. I'm telling you, every board had to be red. And then the steps, I had to scrub the top of the step. I had to scrub the front of the step. Of course, watch God, I had to scrub the side, get off all the kai, back and front. And she would come and she would examine the steps. And if she was satisfied, how you doing? I'm doing all right. Today, I am telling the stories that do not have so much melody. Thank you, Fiona. Yes, Cheryl. Yeah, and I would scrub. And then when she was satisfied, she would pay me. I think she used to pay me $8. And I remember the first time I took that $8 and I went to the market. Thank you, Denise, for more stars. I went to the market and I bought 3 panties. Oh gosh, I can see them right now. The panties were cotton and they had flowers on them. And the elastic waist was, like this wide. You remember that? Those panties? And I brought those panties home and I was just looking at them all the time. That was the first time I had worked for my own money and bought my own panty. Yes. And I took care of those panties. I would wear one, wash the next one, put it behind the fridge to dry because I would need it. I had one, I had to separate them. I had one for going out. Like if I was going out, that was my going out panty. Then I had the one for home and the one for school. And one pair of socks. And let me tell you, these are the stories without melody. If you've just joined today, I am telling the stories that are not so melodious. Because I think that all stories need telling. Not just the one. Wear them only when you are going out. Exactly, Charmin. And I remember we would have to put them behind the fridge for them to dry. And when the panty would dry, you take it off. And the socks too. I remember putting the Bobby socks. I remember sitting down and stitching the heels of the Bobby socks. Stitching the heels of the Bobby socks. And then the Bobby socks would be so worn out that I had to bend the front in and then put a rubber band on it for it to last longer. We had to add life. Adding life to dead things. Yes, put in the panty. We had to add life the things that were over, that were finished with. Yes, we had to keep going. When, it's like in cricket, you score a duck and you say, okay, it's a duck. We couldn't accept the duck. We had to push and push and push past that. And when we pushed past, we kept going. So these are the stories, not just of my life, These are the stories of all our lives. And I think that sometimes it is really important that we tell, yes, Constance, making ends meet, that we tell all of the stories, not just the ones that are beautiful, not just the ones that make us look as if we just have it all together. We must be willing to tell the stories that make us feel as if we're standing on quicksand. You know, when we go into our Atlantic Ocean and you're going into the water, and the deeper you go, you feel as if there is no bottom for your foot. You're not feeling the ground, but you're still willing to take the risk and to test the waters. Yes, we have to tell those stories too. Those stories that make us feel as if there is no bottom on the ground. Yes, Joy, the safety pin on the flip-flop. We have to tell those stories because they're all our stories. There is no way that you can accept some of your stories and negate or reject some of your stories and still be a balanced person. You must embrace them all. Now note, I am not saying that you have to accept the wrongs that were done to you. I am not saying that. Thank you, Phil. What I'm saying is you have to see beyond the story and embrace the lessons in the story. Thank you, Nessa. You have to climb behind the story and see what is the message in this story. Why did I get this human experience? And not just that, now that I've gotten this human experience, how is it going to inform my life? How is it going to inform my journey? How is it going to impact the way I relate to other human beings in the world? That is why we are giving stories. Cherry said, your story is real life. Happy you can tell it publicly and help so many of us understand we're not alone. Exactly. That's the beauty of our stories, is that when we accept them, we are able to see in another human being ourselves. That is it. Think about it deeply. If you cannot accept all of your stories, you cannot accept another human being. This is it. You cannot accept you in your totality. You will never be able to accept another human being in his or her totality because you first rejected yourself. You first rejected a part of you, of who you are. How will you embrace another human being? But if you stand back and you say, you know what? This is my story. I have gone through this. It is okay. I am stronger because of this. Thank you so much for the stars, Earl. I am so much more because of this. Guess what? As you walk in life and you see another human being, because you've accepted your story, because you have shown compassion for yourself, that's the best gift you can give yourself, is to be compassionate to your own soul. Be compassionate to your soul. And when you have done that, yes, when you have done that, then you can be compassionate to another human being. You see, it's first passion. It's first a feeling within oneself. And then it becomes compassion. And compassion is shared passion. Com means with. Okay, so now it becomes shared passion. So my beautiful, beautiful people, whatever your stories are, however embarrassing you might think your stories are, however you've told them in the past, I want to say to you today, embrace all of your stories. Do not negate them. For years I did that and it did not benefit me. The day I decided to accept me in totality, It's the day I became more human. It's the day I could accept other people with their stories too. So I want to say to you, our story got melody will be a place not just for the melodious stories, but for the stories that hang flat, for the stories that we have kept in silence for years because we've been too embarrassed to stand by them, even though they were our stories. Our story will be the space where we can tell all the stories, and we can feel that when we tell our stories, we are having a human experience. Our passion is melded with someone else's passion, and we get compassion. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much for listening. I truly appreciate you on this journey. I truly appreciate you appreciating our culture. I truly appreciate you taking the time to listen to me. I value you. I value you coming to this space and listening. And I value most of all you for embracing the stories, your stories, our story, whether they have melodies or not. Have an awesome afternoon, and thank you so much. Bye. Let me call him George, no? Let me call him George. Bye, guys.